All right. Originally, it said I wasn't live. I believe I'm live now. It says you are live. We are streaming. Welcome to Mastermind Mondays. I'm your host, Eric Coffey, the original GovCon giant. For those of you who are new to the show, thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome. And what we do is we talk about, I was looking for a way in which we can have a conversation about what things that are impacting my business, but also highlight some of our podcast guests, even before the full episodes are released. And today, we had the luxury of entering two wonderful ladies, uh, Carol Craig, who actually she couldn't make it on the podcast today. She got sick, but we did get a chance to interview the owner Heather of SaviLinx. And so today we're going to talk about her organization, SaviLinx, and what they do. She's done some incredible things with her company. But before we jump into that, I just want to welcome everybody who's coming on, give people a couple minutes or so just to jump on board and show up. I know everyone is not on time. So, again, thank you all for joining us tonight. If you do have any questions, I will be reading the chat, so definitely put your questions or comments in the chat. I definitely will be reading them, and we will be able to talk about other issues. I'm probably going to do about 45 minutes to maybe an hour. Just kind of depends on the flow. Not really intent on making this long and drawn out, but definitely want to hit the message, hit a few points, and share with you again as I am just freshly coming off of these stories, these experiences. I want to give you that same energy. I want to actually, be able to transfer the knowledge that I've learned today, like as it happens, because for those of y'all who are not aware, Mondays are my recording days for my podcast. So Mondays are my podcast recording days. And typically what I do is on Mondays, Maria will schedule a couple people for me to interview. Sometimes we've done as much as 3 people in one day, but because I'm a very long-winded speaker, we don't always get a chance to do 3. So now she just schedules me with 2 people, puts them about 3 hours, 4 hours apart, because that way we've done it where we've done an hour apart, and I just blew through that second hour. And today, when I spoke with Heather Blease, we ended up pushing the 2 hour mark. So, but these are really good conversations, and I mean I have such a great time talking with my guests, and also everyone's busy. So when I have the opportunity to talk to a business owner who's doing, 10+ million a year in sales, who's got hundreds of employees, if not thousands of employees, when I get them for that moment, like, and I have them captured where they can sit down with me, cross one on one, I mean, I just totally engage and I open up on them. And that's why, for me, like, sometimes these things go for 2 hours, even though the version that everyone receives may be an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes, but we've spent probably 20 minutes before this thing started, and I get 30 minutes after it's, after we finished, and just kept at it. So let me know, tell me my sound's good, give me some feedback, let me know, just checking my audio before we start like rambling on, and we're 30 minutes into this thing, and somebody's like, oh man, I can't hear you. So let me know, how's my sound, how's my clarity, is everything good, we tight, we right. I am reading the chat, and I see we've got 13 people on right now, but again, just kind of give me some feedback, because I can only see you. It's not like IG Live. I only get the chance to see you guys. I don't, get back from you. So, okay. Mr. Bond says G2G, good to go. That's a plus. By the way, let me know where you guys are ringing in from, right? Where you guys at? What cities? What states? All right. Jamal says we're good here on his side. Positive news. We can hear you. Marty to be. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. One of the things that I think many people don't realize is the amount of work that goes into this. Trent Chess, JB, welcome, welcome. And I mean, we're working around the clock on these things. I mean, I got up first thing in the morning, And I mean, I think I woke up in the middle of the night because on Mondays, right, since I have guests, I don't always actually, I really rarely ever know who I'm going to interview beforehand, right? I don't actually know the guests. Maria sets this up, she schedules them, and I have no idea who that person is. I just, like, Sunday in the middle of the night, I wake up, I look at my calendar, and I say, okay, these are the people I interview. I start doing my research. Boom, 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 boom. And a lot of times, again, I don't know where they came from, how they came to us, but Maria has learned the type of guests that we want. We've done a really good job of, basically picking who we want to be on the show, and not just taking people who want to be on the show or who offer us to come on to the podcast. I think that's really important to maintain the quality of what we're delivering and integrity of what's going on here. So when I wake up like Sunday in the middle of the night, I look at my calendar. I'm like, okay, let me take a look at who I'm going to interview today, and then we jump into it. And this morning, I was really excited for my first guest, and I'll share with you guys her. And so, right here, Carol Craig is the founder of Craig Technologies, and I mean, Carol is a beast. And unfortunately, something happened to her yesterday. She was sick. She couldn't make it today. And that happens when you're out here in this space like we are. But I did want to talk a little bit about her story and share it with you because in the process of preparing for the interview, I do hours and hours of research before these things. So again, even for a 1 hour clip that I'm going to sit down with someone, I want to be prepared. That helps alleviate any fears, any anxieties that I have at the same time. So again, like I'm spending hours doing my research and my homework on this person. And when I was researching her, I learned that, first of all, she's right down the street. I think we've got somebody in Naples, welcome, Stockton, California, Dallas, all right, Wesley Chapel, Florida, Harlem, New York. Okay, we're all over. Miami, Fun and Sun. And Carol is only a few hours from me. She's in Cape Canaveral, Florida, and she's right over there by NASA Space Center, by Patrick Air Force Base. I know that area really well. We did projects in and around those areas, and plus I had a second office just probably about 10 minutes from where she's at, depending upon the part of town, maybe 20 minutes at most. So I knew the area, and when I started researching her and like digging in to her past and what she has done, I mean, it's just remarkable. From the time that I spoke to Maria about it. Maria said that she had actually spoken at the Women's Chamber of Commerce last year, and that's when Maria got a chance to hear her talk. And she was really passionate about women-owned businesses and about women standing up and claiming that it's their companies and their organizations, and not hiding in the background behind the desk somewhere and standing up and saying, this is my business. And one of her pet peeves was that people were actually coming on and saying, is this your business? And the reality is, it's unfortunate and sad that still has to happen. I talked about that a little bit when it came to my own personal journey, my own personal story. So I completely understand that when sometimes we're afraid to stand up and say it's actually our business and we're the owners, and even more so, particularly when you're doing something this what she's doing is just like what they say. It's not rocket science. Well, she's doing rocket science. What's fascinating that I read about her story was she was actually sending payloads to the International Space Station. So when I went through and I was reading about her, I mean, her company has developed a platform that they're actually sending, and I want to get this right. So let me just pull up the language here. Okay, so I get it right. They have developed what's called the Craig X Flight Test Platform, which mounts externally to the International Space Station. All right, and so they've developed a test platform that's being sent out and mounting to the International Space Station. They developed it in-house. They manufacture it. It's owned by her organization. That is incredible, right? That's incredible. And then, like, that's not even the only great thing that she's done. On top of that, she's working with NASA on a contract that would give Craig Technologies exclusive use of a particular, what they call, and I know this technical jargon, but just follow me with it. It's like a spectrum, what they call low Earth orbit, okay, and that would handle microsatellites. And the way that she describes it in her context is it's the deployment gap between small CubeSat launchers and major payloads, okay, and it supports the micro satellite market. So, I mean, this is some deep stuff, right? Like, that is serious. I thought I was doing something, but there's some people out here that are just doing some incredible things. I can't even imagine sending sending your payload out to space. On top of all that, like, she's working with the major organizations that's sending rockets. She was just on a big contract vehicle. I want to pull it up here. Let me grab it here and pull it up for you guys so you can see. By the way, if you ever wonder how do I do my research, I mean, LinkedIn is a great tool. Okay, here, take a look at this. So they're a member of the winning team for a human landing systems contract that they just won. I mean, that's insane, right? So that was the Carol Craig, and so sad that she couldn't make it today, but she will be rescheduling for a future episode. But I thought that it was just absolutely remarkable that what she's done, what she's accomplished, and her business has taken off, and developing technologies for missions and rockets and space. That just is like mind-boggling. So I can't wait to have her on. Very excited guest. And the reason why I decided I want to talk to her anyways is because this may be an advantage that we have for those persons listening right now. It's a great thing. Maybe what you can do is send in questions that you have for her so that when I do interview her, then I will be able to answer your questions directly. So that's why I said, let me, you know what, when Marie and I discussed, should I talk about it or not? I said, you know what, let me go ahead and talk about it, because that way people who may have questions, I can actually take the audience's questions and ask it to her. I know that one of my buddies, he sent me a question already. And let me just read off his question. Samson, he asked, how can an aerospace business get funding to scale outside of SBIRs and SBIT? So that's a question that he wants to ask. If you have any questions for Carol Craig that you want me to ask for the next time that we schedule the podcast, put it in the comments, shoot me an email. I'll make sure to add that to my list of questions, and we will be able to discuss it. Today's guest that I finished with this afternoon, Heather, it's funny because when we were doing the pictures, we had to, hold on. Let me take some of the comments first, and then I'll go into the story. All right, Demetrius, what's up? Trent Chess, Guchard, okay, Mustafa, Trent, Clarksdale, Mississippi. Hey, Trent, you're going to like my second guess. Harlem, West Chapel, Florida. I don't know where that's at. Destin, all right. Okay, all right. So then moving on to the second guess. All right, our second guest, Heather Blease. Now, Heather, it's funny because you, again, like I said, until you start digging in and doing the research, you really don't know much about the people. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me just interject something really quickly. I just saw it on my screen. I want to say this. We actually, for all those people looking, I actually just launched a Facebook group specifically for IT and Telecom opportunities. The site is GovCon Giants IT. You can find the Facebook group. I'm going to drop it in the chat. If you want to join, it's here. Click on the link that I just dropped in the chat. I will also put it in the show notes for those people who are watching it, but you can request it. It's facebook.com/groups/GovCon Giants IT. The reason why I created this Facebook group is we are, or I am, getting ready to create a couple of videos with regard to the IT opportunities that are out there. We have a lot of people that are very interested in how do you win IT contracts, what are the steps to win IT contracts, how do I find partners, and all these kind of stuff. So I decided to make an IT related video. And when I made that decision to make an IT related video, as I was going through and putting the content together for this IT video, I thought to myself, I already know what's the next thing. People are going to watch this video and they're going to want to take action. So I said to myself, let me go ahead and just set up a Facebook group. It's free of charge. Anyone can join it. There's no cost to it. But I want to set up a way where people who had certain, like, again, it's no different than like Teaming Pro. So if you have an opportunity that you want to share or drop in the group, that's great. If you're looking for a teaming partner, you drop in the group, that's great. I was a part of a PPE Facebook group that was similar, and it was something that I knew we needed this when PPE first hit, right? It was like, why are we all fighting against each other? We all need to have some sort of medium to be able to communicate and conversate. And so I developed this particular Facebook group as a way of doing that specifically for IT and telecom opportunities. For those of you who may not know, there was two major IT contracts that dropped last week. I'm going to have a video talking about that, but they were in the billions of dollars. One was the STARS 3 contract that we all probably aware of, but people have already been asking me about putting teams together. And so a very low-tech way for me to start doing that was by using a Facebook group. And I'm not a fan of Facebook, and I'm sure a lot of people probably are not a fan of Facebook these days. However, they do have a medium that we all use, and we don't have to register, and it's pretty easy. And for that reason, combined with the fact that I felt the cons out, the pros outweighed the cons, I decided to start a Facebook group. LinkedIn groups are not as popular. They don't grow as fast or as quickly. They don't take on because not as many people are on LinkedIn. But Facebook groups tend to grow really quickly, and I thought it would be an excellent way to have a dialogue and to share information and files and media, which, as you can see, we've already started doing. What I did was I grabbed here. I already started grabbing the requirements, okay, for the STARS 3 contract. I'm going to post all the requirements in there, the solicitation, all the information, and we will have someone in there monitoring and managing and being able to answer questions. So, it's just a great platform in order to use for the purposes that we're going to use it. It's a great way to share information. It's an excellent way to be able to communicate with each other, and I just don't know any better way. It's like Slack, or it's like Microsoft Teams, but on Facebook. So definitely take a look at that. Sign up, request to join. I know once this video releases, it's going to be a very popular video because IT industry and telecom industry is something that I have never specifically addressed on how to win contract opportunities there, but it's something that we talk about and we touch on. And so this particular presentation that I've created, it's like, I think it's 30 slides, 35 slides, but it's a 30 slides, about 45-minute presentation. It's going to be like sick, and I know that the views are going to be out the roof. And because of that, I'm like, okay, I got to give people something to be able to do and take action and be able to connect with other people and not just get excited about another video. And so I'm trying to think long-term and strategic now when I'm doing these things out here is how do I add value to everyone? How do I be able to increase connectivity? Because something that I learned from last Friday's Q&A sessions, right, was that for me, I know a lot of you out here, but you don't know each other. And I need to be able to find a way to foster more interactivity amongst all of the people that are following and that are watching this content, because if we can increase the amount of interactivity and work and knowing each other and what our skill sets are, then it gives us a better chance to be able to compete effectively out here in the marketplace. And I've seen that happen in so many ways that I didn't even imagine when I first set out to do this. So it's just now, how do I take and harness that and use me as the like Nargis Ali says, I'm just the medium by which all of these things flow through. So I'm trying to find creative ways to do it. I'm always looking for suggestions. Definitely, if you have any suggestions, I'm very open to them. I don't have all the answers, as we all know, but I'm doing my best. And I believe from, again, this is a different era. We're going to have, post-COVID with the reduction in the amount of opportunities for touch points, for contracting people, meeting people. We need to find some other way in which that we can adapt and overcome. And so I thought that this would be a great way to do it. I already know the questions I'm going to receive. And yes, we have considered doing groups for individual industries, but we're not there yet. I definitely want to start with telecom and IT because they have some opportunities that are major, that are significant. And, if you have the opportunity to get on some of these IT vehicles today, even as a subcontractor, these vehicles last 10 years. And so anyone who has an opportunity to get on some of these vehicles now in some capacity, right, in any kind of capacity, you're going to help close some of the gaps in terms of the roller coaster ride of your business up and downs, because you're going to have a potential for 10 years worth of opportunities. And I don't know of any other better way to say it or demonstrate that, but that's what it is. And once I recognize that in other markets and other areas, then we'll respectively do the same thing. But for now, it's IT, telecom. Don't get mad. Just hey, look, refer your friends, refer someone that you know that's in the space, and know that, okay, when this thing comes out, it's going to become really crowded really fast. I can tell you, I suspect both of our other groups are at 400 plus members. I suspect IT on its own will trump that. So Fayetteville, North Carolina, what's going on? Look, some people are already saying that's exactly what I needed. Above Tampa. Okay. All right, Sean. Perfect. Cool. The IT video, I'm working on it. It's coming out really, really soon. So let's go back to Let's go back to Heather. Heather has a remarkable story. So Heather and SaviLinx. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? Again, just type them away, post your questions. Like I said, I don't want this to be drawn out. I just really want to share. Heather, let me pull up my show notes from Heather today. By the way, do you guys want to? Let me see if I don't have a way of showing you these notes. I would love to show them to you guys. So Heather's from Brunswick, Maine. And I was talking to Heather and telling her that before 2018, I had never been up to the Northeast beyond New York, because New York is a place to be. I never had a reason to go to Rhode Island, and I certainly didn't have a reason to visit Maine. Heather's from Maine. And when I was reading her profile and reading all the information, right, about her, I didn't know half the stuff because it was a lot of things that was left out on LinkedIn that I couldn't find. And so I'm scrolling through, but I did notice that she had a stint here at EnvisionNet. So I asked her, I go, hey, tell me about EnvisionNet. What was that company about? And it turns out that, and this is a really good story and a really good point, that when Heather was about 30 years old, one of the facilities up in Maine, because if you look up Brunswick, Maine, in fact, let me do that. Let me help you guys out. I'm going to pull up for everyone out there. We're going to pull up Brunswick, Maine, so you can kind of get some perspective. Okay. Let's just pull up Maine. Okay. There's Brunswick, Maine, right there. Can you guys see that? So there's Brunswick, Maine, right over here by Portland, Maine. And as you can see by the heart shape, that's as far north as I've been. Actually, I've been up here to Kittery. I've been right here to Portsmouth. But Brunswick, Maine is up here. It's another hour away. So just kind of want to shed some light on things. So Heather, she was telling me the story that up in Brunswick, Maine, they had a factory called Digital Equipment Corporation where she worked there for 10 years. And that particular factory was going away. And she was an engineer. She went to school, studied electrical engineering in Maine, also University of Maine. And she worked there coming out of school for about 10 years. And when she was working there, she was doing some like tech support, IT support for the company. And then they were going away. And at that time, she had the crazy idea that maybe she could start her own company providing tech support services for this particular company to help them since they were closing down. She's like 30 years old. And it's funny because, you know, when I look at it and we're talking and she says that she didn't think she took a big of a risk. But what was remarkable is that she actually grew that company from her and two other people to 2,500 people, right? And so imagine if you're hearing that story from someone, you're like, dang, like she grew this company 2,500 people. And then what she told me was that she actually raised a lot of venture capital funding. And so I'm like, wow, that's I'm sitting here and I'm listening to the story. I'm like, that's pretty remarkable. But the story ends with the company actually filing Chapter 11. And she says it was still existing, but the venture capitalists that helped her with that gave her the funding, they were really not the best decision makers. And so I asked her, what happened? And she goes on to tell the story that they advised her to hire a CEO. And she's just like, I thought I was doing a pretty good job of running the business, the organization, where apparently they felt she was only 30 years old and she needed someone more senior to run the company. Does that not sound familiar? Have we not heard these stories before? But I think, for me, what hits home is that this is a regular person I'm on the other line with, talking to, having very similar experiences to what we see on TV with people like, say, a Steve Jobs, right, where he got ousted from his company at Apple because of the board. So she has this board of directors, she's got these venture capitalist companies, and she felt as though the weight and the pressure of trying to just drive bottom line and numbers and trying to get from up under that investment weighed really heavily on the organization. And so when we talked about some of the mistakes she made, those were some of the mistakes that she made back then. But I will say this, because I asked her the question. I said, Heather, what happens when, right? People want to know, how did you get your first contract? All right, I'm listening to you guys out here, and I'm hearing from people, they want to know, well, how did you get your first contract? What did it take for you to get the first contract? So I asked her, well, how did you get, how do you get venture capital funding? And so she told me that she actually, to start that business, her and her husband sold their house and moved into an apartment. So she said, Eric, I'm kind of person that's all in on everything. And she said that's the way she felt on her businesses. She goes all in. She doesn't go halfway in. So I was like, wow. She sold her house and moved into an apartment. And by the way, at this time, she had 3 kids that were like all under the age of 8. So people ask me, what do you think? And she just felt like, hey, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to be all in about it, and I'm going to sink or swim. And that's really was her mentality. So then fast forward 8 years later, she launches SaviLinx. And so I said, well, what made you jump back into this space? What made you jump back into the world? And she said that the company, so that company that went Chapter 11, they actually got acquired by some investor. They bought them out, and then that person sold to another investor, and ended up like three owners later, the company came back to her for consultation services, and they wanted her to do business development for their organization on, and they specifically asked her about getting government contracts. And so again, she had some time on her hands, and she said, "Okay, I'll work with them on doing their business development for this large organization that bought her, once defunct company, but they were a huge organization, and so they brought her on to do consultant work. And about 6 months in, she realized that one, they didn't have any past performance in the federal arena, and two, they weren't a small business. And so it was really hard for them to break in, but it gave her the spark that, hey, I know this business, I know this industry, I'm a woman, and maybe she can go out and start her own business. And that's where she founded SaviLinx. And so she founded the company, I want to get it right, in 2013, okay, is when she founded the company. And by let me look at my notes, I don't want to mess this up. Okay, so in 2013, she founded the company. And again, I asked the same questions. Well, all right, you said you did things smarter. You didn't make the same mistakes as, before when you were, 30 years old. And she said that this time what they did was they took advantage of various programs to help them fund their business. And by the way, listen up here. I wrote it down. So I asked her, I said, what were some of those programs? Because I know my audience, they want to know what programs helped you get the business started. She said that she received funding from like state and regional, she said, development agencies. Okay, and I've heard of those. So you've got like community redevelopment agencies. Okay, you have city redevelopment agencies. And then we have here, depending upon where you set up your business, there's also foundations that have funding for small businesses if you are in and or around one of their areas. So she took advantage of those dollars to help her start the second time around. And then she also said she went to a local Angels Fund network. All right. So she went to the local Angels Fund network, and at the Angels Fund network is where there was like a group of like 10 people that invest together, and they gave her a small like seed funding. So between the development agencies, the foundation, and the Angels Fund network, she was able to start her business, SaviLinx, and she says it's the best decision she made because she was able to be profitable and pay back the money in a short period of time and not be, weighed down with the debt of venture capital. And they started just growing. And when she started the business, she had one client already that wanted her assistance and her help. Let me just kind of show you guys the markets they serve real quick. Hold on. Okay. And so she said it was literally her. She hired two people, and then one person did the building up of the actual the platform, like the training curriculums, and the other person helped her recruit the 20 people that she needed for that first contract, and that's how she got started. So I'm like, wow, that's remarkable. So let me hold on. I'm gonna pull something up real quick. Where's that? Give me a second. I want to pull this up. Dun, dun, dun. We're talking. This is interesting. I didn't even know this about her. Let me share this story.
So this is Heather, and in 20, this goes over the story. I can drop this in the chat if you guys want to read it. But essentially, she went start for one client, and then in 6 years, they this was the last company. They went 2,500 employees, $30 million, and then within 2017, it doesn't say how much they did. Dun, dun, dun. But either way, in 2017, they went to. She went from 2013 to 2016. They had 9,000% revenue growth mark. So they went from, like she said, I think she told me they did like $100,000 to basically like $10 million in 3 years, essentially. And then from 2014, 2017, another 800% growth. And then 2018, then from 2015 to 2018, they did another 300+%. So now they're somewhere approaching around $17 million. And so in a very short period of time, which I thought was very relevant to a lot of you out there, because sometimes it's hard to identify with someone who is like 20 years out in business, 30 years out in business. You're like, well, that person's not like me. And going back to the comment that I made, I asked her, I said, well, how did you grow so fast? And she said it was the government contract. So government contracts represent about 50% of her business in terms of revenues. But in terms of clients, it's 20% of her clients, but 50% of the revenues. And so I asked her, okay, what happened? And she did the same things that we talk about: start knocking on doors, talking to people, and meeting with people. And her first opportunity that she received for a government contract was actually in Mississippi. And she started a project in Mississippi, went down there. And it's funny because she says, Eric, it was just me. And she grabbed her son. I think he was 17, 18 years old at the time. They went down to Mississippi. And the person, she was doing a subcontract work, by the way, not even prime. Just this all happened as a subcontractor. So I always tell people, don't dismiss the role or the idea of being a subcontractor, because for some of these major companies that she worked for, like say a General Dynamics, for example, that's a drop in a bucket for these guys. And so the first contract they gave her was to staff like 25 people, and then she did that really well. Then asked her, could she add 25 more, and then 50 more, and then 100 more, and the next thing you know, she had 250 people working in Mississippi, and then someone else gave her a contract for another 25 people. And then as they grew their organization, or as they scaled up, or they had new opportunities, they would just keep adding bodies. And next thing you know, a few years later, she restructured her lease, and now she has a facility in Mississippi, I believe, that houses 700 plus people, plus another 400 up there in Maine. So she's got well over 1,000 employees to date. And her most recent project that she worked on was she actually started providing the call center services for the unemployment benefits. So when people were calling in about their unemployment benefits for that in Mississippi, they were calling and speaking to people that were working for SaviLinx. So I thought it was a fascinating story. We go into a lot more issues than that, but I just kind of want to touch on some of the highlights out there to share in some of the experiences of people. I asked her what she calls it, a contact center. I go, what's the difference between a call center and a contact center? She said, just the name. Call centers, before, they used to only do phone calls. And now, she says, contact centers, they do everything from chat to help desk support, web, SMS chat. So there's basically different ways of contacting a person, not just on the phone. So I thought that was it was fascinating. It was an incredible story. And we just, like I said, we just kept talking and going in. And what you won't see on the podcast was that her business developer was actually listening in throughout the conversation. So that was a first for me, but I didn't mind it. It was, at all, but it was definitely something to share and to see. And she told me that, again, working with the large organizations as a subcontractor, She's only now starting to bid as a prime contractor her own opportunities and projects. So all of the scaling up of her organization from where she was at to where she's at today has been primarily subcontract work. So let me go over here and see what kind of questions and comments people have out there. And it's funny because a lot of people, not a lot, but I've had people say, Eric, you don't talk enough about professional services. Listen, I want to talk about every topic. Every topic is important to me, right? Um, and that's why I'm sharing these stories, sharing these experiences, because again, I'm hoping that I know people that I know of that want to do training, right? And like this is a way to do it. And I have another podcast guest, Merry Korn, on the podcast. Let me pull Merry Korn up. But Merry Korn, she Pro Interactive Network, she's one of my podcast guests, and she did something very similar. So Merry Korn, let me just pull up Merry Korn real quick. Merry Korn did the same thing where she grew her business out, and she's a women-owned business, Hub's own business as well, and she grew her business out doing staffing and contact centers to over 1,000 employees as well. So that space, man, is really incredible. There's tremendous opportunities in that space. It looks like there's a lot of need in that space. They pride themselves on delivering, and and again, that goes back to Mama You, deliver excellence every day, and putting yourself out there. One of the things that stood out to me was that Heather had no qualms about saying, "Hey, I'm all in on this." And I asked her, "Where did you get that attitude from?" And she says, "Well, even when I decided the second time around, when I'm thinking about starting SaviLinx," she said, "Hey, I didn't want to be 90 years old and say, well, what happened? What could have happened if I would have started that business? What might have happened? I wonder what would have came out of that." And the phenomenal thing, and she didn't know this, but that's the same thing that Jeff Bezos from Amazon said when he decided to start Amazon, was that he looked at his life and said, okay, when I'm 85 years old, 90 years old, I'm in a nursing facility, I don't want to look back at my life and say, what if I wonder what would have happened if I would have started that little company, Amazon, selling books online. And it's just remarkable because I told her, I said, well, wow, you thought like Jeff Bezos. And you know what she says? Well, maybe Jeff Bezos thought like me. That is exactly the mindset of an entrepreneur. That's the kind of mindset that you have to have. That's the kind of thought process that you have to have, right? It's like, no, I didn't think like Jeff Bezos. He thought like me. But the point being, that was the same thought process. And if that's what it takes, right, to help you to push through, maybe that's the way that we should all be thinking about these things, because the reality is true. Time's creeping up on us. Hey, before we look up, it's going to be COVID Christmas, right? It's going to be COVID Thanksgiving. And then hopefully, we don't wipe this thing out and we still in this situation, we're going to be COVID New Year. Time is creeping up on us. Like my mom said, every time she look up, it's Friday again. It's with all this stuff that's going on out there, and all of the, like I said, all of the opportunities, all of the things that are happening around us, it's kind of hard to sit back and just do nothing. For me, I find it's really hard to sit back and just do nothing. I don't understand it. But I do know that fear is the really big driver for a lot of people out there. And she had her ups and downs. She had she had a situation she told us, where she told me on the call was that, like, Eric, in the first couple of years wasn't easy. We were scraping and scrapping. A lot of times I emptied out my bank account to make payroll, and then a check would come in, and then I, pay myself back the money. But we, as people, as humans, we have overcome a lot more adversity than that. And I personally know what it's like to have an empty bank account. I personally know what it's like to be in debt and to be negative. And you don't die, right? You just don't die from it. And so it's interesting because not a lot of people, I don't want to make blanket statements, but there's enough people that are using their hardships, their stories as crutches, and not enough people that are using them as advantages. I actually just recently I picked up 50 Cent's new book, and I was reading it, and what he said was that you know, and he was and again this is 50 Cent's book. In fact, I'm going to play that quote, but basically he said, in the sense of the word, is if you compare yourself to someone who has been given, you know, entitlement or opportunity, and they didn't have to go through adversity, he says that person, because they didn't have to go through adversity, they're actually not a strong competitor against you, because since you went through adversity, you're going to be more creative in the types of solutions and ideas that you can bring to the table. And I thought that was that just hit the nail on the head for me, because rather than look at your adversity as being a crutch or weakness, look at it as you actually have a competitive advantage, because you know what it's like to try to feed your family and run a job, right? You know what it's like to raise a kid, maybe on a single parent household and on a very limited budget. So other people don't know how to do that. And so other people, for the smallest things, may turn to drugs or opioids or alcoholism, and you are like, that's just an everyday problem, right? That's a normal problem that happens in and around my upbringing and my experiences. So you're not even fazed by that particular situation happening to you, whereas someone else might become fazed. So I just thought that was great, because when you look at the great people out here who excel, it's not that anyone is smarter than the next person. They just look at things differently. Their perspective is different. They like, you hear a lot, and I really do like this. A lot of people say they have like outer body experiences. They go to a heightened state. They and I feel the same way when I'm making content, when I'm writing stuff. Sometimes I go to an elevated state, and some people call it flow, right? Flow, where you can work all night. You can work. I think that you have to sometimes have like an out of body experience and look at things from that type of world, because that's what it takes for you to take and set yourself apart from everybody else out here to be able to do these great things. And I've consistently heard it time and time again from people who do great work, who excel, who rise to the top. It's like, hey, the way they saw this was totally not the way someone else saw it, right? So the way that we saw that negative moment, they saw it as a total opportunity, right? And it was like, so you're like, if anyone saw the documentary Michael Jordan, you'll hear that, right? If you've watched the story talk about Kobe Bryant, he was Mamba mentality. So again, it's taking yourself to that different place, and even some of the boxers have experienced it, where you just feel like it's, like I said, it's you against the world, and you can conquer everything. So I thought that was interesting, because it's the same thing here with Heather. She's like, look, we're sink or swim. We're all in or nothing. And I can't answer the question for you out there watching. What does it take for you to get there? What does it take for you to do that? But I can continue sharing these stories, these experiences that I've learned, that that I'm witnessing, that I'm being part of, and hoping that it does something for you, and that something that I say triggers something internally to catches on. I know we have some people in our group and in GovCon Giants that their first contract was a major contract, like the first one. Like, they didn't even try, but by putting themselves out there, they were able to get their first opportunity. I've had people message me that we talked about that went after a GSA schedule that they wanted. They went after, someone texted me today about going after an IT MAC contract that they won. I personally today received notice that I won an IDIQ for one of my clients. That's 5-year IDIQ sole source 8A, and I got that today. So listen, there's things happening around us. There's things happening out there. Do not throw in the towel. Do not give up. Figure out, what tweaks you need to make. Figure out nuances, differences. Find where the opportunity is at. It's there. every single person watching this, the opportunity is there. It hasn't gone away. Doesn't matter who's the president. And I always say this, doesn't matter who's in office. They're still spending money. There's still opportunities out there for people that want to do good work. There's a lot of people out there that are looking for jobs. So you have the workforce and you have the opportunities. So it's now you have to figure out how to put those two together, right? The workforce exists because there's a lot of people that they're talking about crying, right? The economy is going to go in a tank. When the end of July happens, there's, screaming the sky is going to fall. There's a lot of people out here that are going to be without jobs. I've had someone actually reach out to me today, needing help with placing some people with jobs and things like that. But if you can identify, the areas in which you can excel and you can deliver and you have the ability to be able to hire someone, and again, hire someone great enough to run the organization, because like what Heather said to me, she's like, hey, now we've got departments for HR, finance, and things like that. She also referenced a book. It's called Traction, that we'll talk about, that she says has been like the pillars which she set her organization on. But definitely, just kind of wanted to share those experiences with you today. Have a little chat. Didn't want to kill everybody's Monday evening, but definitely want to have a conversation with everyone out there. Talk to you, because I get so much energy from these conversations. Every time Maria and I we get on the horn and we talk about the calls and how they went. And so I really feed off of this stuff. And so I thought, let me pass along some of that same energy to everyone out there, so you can start off this week fresh and excited and pumped up and ready to go. Definitely want to give you guys that energy from the guest gave me, passing from me to you, and hopefully now you'll take that energy and have a very productive week. Look for us. If you're just coming on and you missed in the beginning, we did launch for IT. We just launched this new Facebook group for IT and telecom companies. I'm making some content related to IT and telecom specifically because of the STARS 3 contract that just came out, and the other contract, I think it's called DISA, that was another $12 billion vehicle. So STARS 3 is projected to be, $20 plus billion. DISA is $12 billion. I know that's 10 years. So we are making content related to that. If you are in the IT telecom space or interested in that space, it's free to join. There's no cost. I know that once I release these videos that people are going to be flooding to that particular group, and I want to have a way that people could share in on information and opportunities. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Just want to kind of plug that real quick again. If you like the content, again, make sure to give us a thumbs up. If you're not getting the notifications, hit the little notification button. We are doing, if you are on IG, follow us on GovCon Giants IG. I will be doing a YouTube live on IG Wednesdays. Maria, Wednesday? Yeah, I think it's Wednesdays. Yep, Wednesdays. I'll be doing IG live. Last week, my IG live, we met with Lori Sales, one of my podcast guests. She jumped on, and it was a great time. It was my first IG live ever on GovCon Giants. A lot of fun, where one of my guests, she was just on there and boom, boom, boom. And I was like, hey, dial in. And she dialed in, and we were there talking. Very powerful. If you have not seen that story on IG, definitely powerful. It was a unique experience that I couldn't even made it up. I couldn't even create this on my own. It just happened because I was on and she was on, and she was at the office, and we talked about wealth building and success and growth. And the quote that I used, because she talked about making money that we don't even see, was and one of the songs that Lil Wayne makes says I have money from 2002 that I haven't seen since 2002. And so I was like, wow, that's kind of where you want to be at, right? And that's the place where I think we all want to be and we want to get to. And this marketplace affords us that opportunity, affords us that ability. And so again, I'm doubling down, as you can see, on content, on lives, on Facebook pages, on everything out there. We're doubling down. We're making a commitment to everyone out there. We're making an investment, and we just want to make sure that as many people who want the knowledge and who want to be part of this marketplace, we're going to do that for you. We're going to give it to you. We're going to serve them that information. So again, big commitment on my part, but at the same time, I definitely feel it's worth it because I know that long term, a lot of people are going to benefit from this, and I can look back, 2, 3, 4 years from now and see how many people that we touched, that we impacted. And like I said, I want to be on yacht parties with you guys. I want to be on like the Tom Joyner cruise, but not Tom Joyner, be like GovCon Giants cruise with everybody out there having a good time. So I want to be amongst all of you out there, successful contractors, business owners, and we spend a week on a Caribbean vacation, obviously after they've sanitized them boats. But at some point, right, we want to start doing retreats and getaways and everything like that. And so I want to have great people that are like-minded that we can surround ourselves with. So definitely, thanks for joining in. Thanks for listening. Yes, Carol Knight, she's fierce. Yes, definitely we'll be talking about the subcontract opportunity more. Jamal, Mustafa, thank you. Teddy, I see you. Eli, yes, we can't go wrong. Quote Lil Wayne. He's actually whenever I write proposals, I'll tell you this. Since Eli made that comment, a secret, right? Since all you guys have stayed this long, a secret. When I put together technical proposals, I have a Snickers, I have Mountain Dew, and I have Lil Wayne in my ear. And as crazy as it may seem, I don't know. It's something about me putting on headphones and music. It like pumps me up. It fires me up, and I can write away. I mean, I can write a technical proposal like a madman, and like I just kill it. So, and obviously it works because, like I said, we've been negotiating, $1 million contract after $1 million contract after $1 million contract over the last 4 weeks. So, sorry if you missed the entire video. Don't worry about it. It's gonna be recorded, so you guys get to hear it. So, hey. We're almost at that hour mark. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'll see you Wednesday on IG Live. If you're in the GovCon Giants group, I'll see you tomorrow in our private Q&A session. And also for this month, if you have scheduled a one-on-one with me on Friday, I will see you Friday. We're doing 10 one-on-ones every Friday up until the fiscal year ends for the government. So absolutely, hey, love you guys more than you think. I have a great time doing this. Right? It's been a joy and a pleasure. I'll see you next time.